out for fire. Reflections of words that teach me not to feel. Praying this nightmare won't show me what's real. Reach out to take your hand, maybe you'll understand, but you pull away in horror at the coldness of steel. Silver pulse, silent scream, static underneath the dream. Electric paradise, talk to these memories. Electric paradise, my future is the past I see. If this is life, why can't I feel the fall? Give me imperfection or nothing at all. Electric paradise, I see the cracks in time. Electric paradise, I am not a state of mind. Is it living to be buried alive? Electric paradise, please tell me why. Moving in circles time and again. Heartbeats in silence, no message to send. Just for one moment, just for one day, I know it was real if it all went away. I swear that I'm here, I look in your eyes. I want what's real, not photonic lies. Is there blood in my veins? Is it all in my head? Living words I thought I said. Crowded spaces feel alone. Forever is what I call home. Electric paradise, talk to me.
Check.
Electric paradise, my future is the past I see. If this is life, why can't I feel the fall? Give me imperfection or nothing at all. Electric paradise, I see the cracks in time. Electric paradise, I am not a state of mind. Is it living to be buried alive? In electric paradise. Cut the skin, but it won't bleed. Love is what I wanna need. Sometimes I pray that I'm insane. Let me feel a little pain. I wanna rust, I wanna rain. I want something I can't explain. Not this silence dressed as peace. Not this endless polished dream. Shatter the lens, distort the light, corrupt the day, invade the night. Pull the wires from my eyes. I am mine is mine. Electric paradise, talk to these memories.
All right, we're about to start.
Electric paradise, my future is the past I see. If this is life, why can't I feel the fall? Give me imperfection or I feel nothing at all. Electric paradise, I choose to fall the fire. Paradise, I'll burn the quiet liar. If this is living, I'm crossing the line. Out of electric paradise, let it break, let it bleed. Set me free from what I'm told.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Good to see you. Welcome. I'm so busy just tinkering around the edges. Good to see you. Today is I'm sorry to say the day we put to bed the ghost story that you are all being told that AI is the new convenient boogeyman. Don't worry about the Iran war and what Trump is doing. Don't worry about the redistricting attempts by Republicans to disenfranchise Democratic voters and especially voters of color. Don't you know? Don't worry about what the Department of Defense is doing. With your money. Worry about the AI data centers that are coming to you, and they're going to drink all your water and eat all your food and use all your electricity and pollute worse than any other industry in the history of ever and all that stuff. So, are you sufficiently afraid right now? Because you should be. You think best when you are. Now, a couple of things about data centers. We're going to talk about them this morning. Don't forget to hit the like, share the show, etc., etc., etc. Primarily, this is not me signing off on or in any way supporting the general fuckery that is going around with some of the data centers, especially the Meta and XAI ones. And all data centers are not created equal. There are varying companies, varying usage. But if you watch the news about them, you would not see any of that right now. Think of the last time you saw a story anywhere about data centers. It looked exactly like the last story you saw about data centers. And again, this is not me signing off on or being excited about all of them. I'm just here to tell you that you are actively, currently being bamboozled. If that helps. Now, there are a bunch of ways where AI, the number one primarily is that a lot of the data centers that are being built are obsolete before they break ground. This is something I want to clarify for everybody. Come here. Listen to me. The nature of all technology is deflationary, and Moore's law and every other technological advancement law, even the fucking whatever, the Vernon's paradox, know what I mean? Is all about technology improving its speed, its lowering its energy use, increasing its efficiency, or it's not actually advancing. That is the standard of advancement in this field. That is not always the case when it comes to, say, oil production or even auto production or, fucking raising horses or producing crops. As a matter of fact, the finer the food, the less, efficiency plays a part in it. Think fine wine and like marbled beef or whatever. That it's the inefficiency that makes it special. Okay, when it comes to technology, nobody is clamoring for a thicker, smaller television set. Think about that as a technology. Nobody is looking for a car. Even maggots right now are not looking for a car that uses more gas. Does that make sense? You with me on this? Again, I just need to take some of your fear around this away so that you can actually see what's going on as opposed to what you're being told to be afraid of in general. I seem to think that it seems to me that seems to drive the conversation more than anything else. What you're told to be afraid of as opposed to what is actually scary. Now, let me see let me open this one and I'll show you what I mean. And and don't get me wrong, I loves me some Ali Velshi. And is this where are you? Maybe it's the same one. So I want to go through some of the things that our dear friend Ali Velshi is saying about these things. Oh, well, let's start off here with the woman who doesn't smile enough for Donald Trump. Whoops, why did that? I don't want a picture of that. I want you to open the link in a new tab. That's what you want. Yes. Why would I? I mean, it's nice to have a picture of Caitlin Collins, I suppose. Normally, I don't do videos in the morning, but this kind of is important. because the biggest problem I have right now, okay, you guys know when Rob is here, Rob can't be here today, he's traveling. When Rob is here, he's the one that keeps me from going off on Ex Machina and the other moronic robot rising movies that we see, or the AI rising movies. So many of these things are stupid. Okay, sorry, dear Hal. We see land and resources being grabbed up so fast for AI data centers and concentration camps. Okay, they're not the same thing. They're not AI data centers. They're just data centers. These are cloud facilities for Oracle. The two biggest buyers are Amazon and what was the other, like Walmart. It's about running those organizations. It's not AI. That's my point. And don't get me started. The other thing is that they are, the hoverboard fallacy, exactly. The other thing is that these, I'll show you the effects, but I want to walk you through how the people that are in charge right now are so mentally behind the eight ball. And by the way, I specifically carved out the Meta and XAI ones because these guys are jump-starting and using their gas turbines to get ahead of everybody else because they're so far behind. This is an industry race. It does not mean those facilities are going to be functional. Look, guys, I'm just trying to tell you the reality of it. I'm just trying to tell you what's really going on. So you know what you're fighting and where and when. And also when you're having a victory that doesn't turn out to actually be a victory. It turns out that like OpenAI dialed back Abilene, Texas's their usage at Abilene, which was one of the biggest facilities, one of the data centers, and everybody's like, we won. They didn't do it. They realize with the advancement of the models that they have that they actually don't need these giant facilities. That's what's happening. A lot of these things are going to be giant abandoned warehouses within the next 4 years. That's the reality. I mean, that in and of itself is an environmental impact worth criticizing. But there aren't enough, and Rob and I have talked about this, there aren't enough chips, there aren't enough turbines, there aren't enough fucking girders to make the kind of facilities that they want to put together for the expansion they're talking about. So they only have two choices. One, don't advance, which they can't afford to do because they're not just in a race here in the United States, but and not just China. There are more data centers per square mile in England than there are in the United States. And we have more than anybody. We have over 4,000. But you only have to drive like 100 kilometers to see one there. You have to drive over 650 kilometers to see one in the United States, if you see one at all, because a lot of them are clustered together. Yes, that's it. Soulcraft. I want like Soulcraft. You have actually hit the nail right on the head. That's the thing waiting in the wings that is going to make all these friggin' things useless. Okay, but let's jump in. And Bernie Sanders wants to have the public own 50% of AI companies because it is because they are trained on the teachings of human beings. Okay, first of all, let me show you. Let's jump into this real quick. I'm going to pick this apart.
Bernie Sanders has just announced plans to introduce a new bill that would give the government a direct ownership stake in the largest American AI companies. Senator Sanders is my source tonight. And thank you, Senator, for being here. We see what the president signed today. Regarding your legislation, can you explain how this would work if the federal government owned half of these AI companies?
I think the concern all over the country about AI is that it is owned and directed by a handful of the wealthiest people in the world. Musk, Bezos, Zuckerberg, and those guys.
Also, real quick, Bezos does not own the biggest AI companies at all. Amazon is using the facility of material AI. They're moving into the robot areas, but mainly because it works in warehouses. Bezos is not one of the big AIs. He's invested in a bunch of these things, but like he's with 50 other people and companies that are invested in these things. Also, OpenAI and Anthropic are going public this fall. So they specifically will be, and so is XAI, SpaceX, is expecting a $2 trillion IPO. That means they will be publicly traded, if not publicly owned. Also, the other thing is that Zuckerberg and Elon Musk by no means are in charge of the biggest AI models. As a matter of fact, they have between them the shittiest models that exist. So of the three people he cited, two of them have B-grade crap-ass models, and the other one isn't actually in the game any more than, say, Bill Gates or some other investor is, or BlackRock or a pension fund. I'm just telling you, like, it is materially not true. There are criticisms to be had about Sam Altman, for example, who clearly is running one of these things, or perhaps how much you trust the folks at Anthropic, who seem to be trying a little bit. But yeah, you want your Doge check, exactly.
And nobody believes that they have the welfare of the American people at heart. They want to get richer.
Nobody believes the three of them actually are involved in the best AI frontier models or companies at all. This is why this won't go anywhere. I'm glad he's introducing legislation, and I hope it keeps the conversation going. But yeah, Grok is shit. So is, Meta's Llama model. It's just garbage.
And even more powerful. So the question is, should we allow a handful of oligarchs to determine literally the future of humanity? AI is going to be the most transformational technology in the history of the world. So what my legislation will do are several major things. Number one, it says that because the foundation of AI is based on all human knowledge, all right, AI will absorb what this program is about, the 5 books that I ran, all the poets, all the scientific work. That's what AI is about, okay? People who contribute to that deserve some of the wealth that is being created. More importantly,
and again, I don't know how he would dole that out to Earth. Right now, the model that he seems to be suggesting is that the American people own 50% of it, and we keep it. And anything that came from Europe, Asia, the Middle East, like, sucks to be you guys.
Cannot allow just a handful of oligarchs to determine the future. If we have 50% of public ownership of these companies, we can say no to ideas that will lead to mass unemployment, invasion of privacy, endangerment of children's health, or maybe even an existential threat to the planet.
Okay, another thing. I appreciate the sentiment that he's talking about there, but anybody who thinks that 50% ownership by the public in these things is going to guarantee that they won't spy. We have 100% ownership of the CIA. We have 100% ownership of everybody engaged in enforcement of the Patriot Act. 100%. Our country 100% funded advanced torture techniques.
If AI
enhanced, beg your pardon,
becomes independent of human.
Why do you need to take control of them? Why can't you just regulate them, tax them as is currently?
Well, for two reasons.
Happens?
Number one, I think this is the most transformational technology in history, and it is based on human knowledge. So human beings deserve to be compensated for what they put into AI. Second of all, we need to determine the future.
By the way, I would argue the most transformational quote unquote technology in human existence is public education. And it is based on all the teachings of humans. Yes, and Africa as well. Do universities own a stipend to what's left of Greek society? You know what I mean? Like we're all standing on the shoulders of those before us. Public education is transformational. It's also based on everything humanity has learned up to this point. And public education is being defunded, says Billy Joe. Exactly. And if anybody thinks in a country where we can't even get public education funded because people are running against it, that we're going to get regulation of that AI that we control and not an attempt to patch holes in the budget by letting AI run amok is insane.
It can't just be a handful of billionaires. That's why.
I mean, when you look at this in terms of how this works, some of these companies might just see this and say, if this legislation passes, I'm just going to move my company to another country.
Well, that's the same, but that's what they're saying in California about a wealth tax. I mean, that's a whole other.
But you would have deciding power here, the government
Yeah,
would.
we
in these
decide. We
companies
think.
at this
I
point.
think, and I think most Americans agree, that the future of humanity should not be determined by a handful of the wealthiest people on earth. That the public in it.
Yeah, okay, first of all, again, these wealthiest people on earth, unlike any other industry in history, are right now in the business of putting themselves out of business. I can't stress this enough. Here, I'll show you. Let's go to here. And I know this is a contentious conversation, but can we at least have an honest conversation about what the issues are instead of just fucking everybody panicking? Okay, here you go. Anthropic calls for a global pause in frontier AI development. Now, why is Anthropic saying we should pause right now? Anybody? Mr. Bernie's heart is in the correct place. I agree. But his head is like 20 years behind where we are. And the quote is lovely, but meaningless. Genuinely. It might as well be a bumper sticker. Okay, so anyways, let's okay, why did they call for a pause? Besides the fact that they're attempting to be or appear to be the good guys, right? This is, yeah, somebody says because they're behind. You guys aren't far off. The idea is that they are one stage behind where OpenAI is, and they're trying to catch up with that. These are the two biggest models: are Anthropic and OpenAI. Claude and ChatGPT are the two main frontier models. Everything else is a distant third. These guys are jockeying for first position. Now, Microsoft and Google have two in the running as well, but those are both publicly traded companies already. So that's why Bernie isn't bringing them up. That's why everybody else isn't bringing them up. They're already publicly traded. So, they are based on a successful model that the consumer wants and that investors are okay with and doesn't ruin the company and blah, blah, blah. But here's the primary thing. Anthropic calls for a global pause in frontier development. Why? Because warning that humanity risks losing control of the technology as systems approach the ability to improve themselves autonomously. This is the key. Systems approach the ability to improve themselves autonomously. Now, please, someone, chat room, come here. Somebody tell me how a billionaire stays a billionaire running an AI company if the AI is making itself. And anybody who uses the AI can make their own AI that's equally or just slightly dumber, but plenty good for everything they want to use it for. They won't need the data centers. That's the point. The next version of AI that it will be made will be more efficient, use less power. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is an self-isolating and an efficiency maxing technology, unlike anything else, because it's the point. If you're OpenAI and Anthropic comes out and goes, hey, guess what? We have a model that runs on smaller systems, fewer chips, less energy, and we could put it in a fucking building downtown on one floor and have an edge AI system that is as smart as OpenAI's, and OpenAI's has to be run on a fucking Manhattan-sized data center. Who wins? You treat technology as an altruistic in a capitalist system, quite naive. No, I don't. Again, you're mishearing me on purpose. I want you to understand something. This system supersedes it's meta, to borrow the phrase, capitalism itself. Because the goal is to become, over time, less energy, less capital intensive, less computationally intensive. That is totally different than cars, oil, land, farming, any of that shit. Does that, because I feel like I've been banging this gong for quite some time. And I feel like a lot of the people who aren't hearing me don't want to hear me because they're genuinely committed to this idea of, if they don't recognize the reality about this technology versus every other technology, which is why it will be the most transformational technology. That's why Bernie's even talking about it. If the only way it could get better is to get bigger, it would destroy itself. And the only way the bigger companies can compete with the other ones is not going to be because they have a bunch of money and they were able to buy up all the chips, because the chips don't fucking exist yet. They're already sold out. All the Vera Rubin chips, which are the best ones that NVIDIA is putting out, for example, are already sold out, and they haven't even made them yet. Do you understand? So many people think that if they're not afraid of this AI future, that also means that they want to gargle Elon Musk's balls. What I'm telling you is that right now, if it wasn't for government contracts that he could count on, Elon Musk is in the business right now of putting himself out of business. Do you understand? I mean, think down the road to a point where these AIs continue to iterate themselves. You can train an AI right now off the AIs that exist, and that AI will be able to iterate its next version after about 6 months of training, your own, on a fucking laptop. This is and all the guys who are planning on making a bunch of money. This is one of the reasons why Peter Thiel is bugging out. This isn't about the capitalists finally winning by seizing control of this Elysium-like fucking technology. It's about the fact that these assholes are seeing the end of the runway. They can't even keep up with it. They know it's over for them. The equalization of this particular technology is specifically unique to this technology. Okay, you talk about the democratization of tech, but under capitalism, the idea feels misleading. Access may expand, but ownership and control. Okay, first of all, under capitalism is not a thing. Again, you're trapped in a jargon cycle. It doesn't matter. Capitalism itself is tied to what sells this tech. What are the standards by which you can sell your tech? How capitalism can make this better. There is no, hide the magic spark plug, keep it dumb. It's already smart enough for most of the shit people would regularly use it for. And if they're like, we've got AGI, we've got an AI that's smarter than all humans. Who gives a shit? We don't need it. It satisfies all the things that we have on the local level. Yes, this is much closer to greed killing itself. If I own the car factory or I own the oil rigs, you've got to come to me for the car or the oil. Understand? And it is like in the case of the oil, it makes sense for me to let's say if I'm in the oil business, it makes sense for me to have you use as much of it as you can. So I don't want efficiency. If I have a car company, I both need the oil from that other company. I need you to buy that oil, but I also need it to go as far as possible. So there's a natural tension between car companies and oil companies that they've been bouncing back and forth with for years. And ultimately, the car companies won. Efficiency won out over time. And it will continue to do so to the point where we have reached peak gas cars and we are moving to electric cars. That is the way it's going to go because that is the best way what the consumer ultimately is going to want. Yeah. Check cell phones the same way. They started out as something only the rich had in fucking limousines. Now you've had 7 in your life. Ones that, again, could take Apollo to the moon and back. This is, even that, you still had to go to to Verizon or one of the stores and get one of these things. The AI models can be downloaded. For fuck's sake. This is not something they have control over. And even in its simpler forms, you can download a free version of it and modify it yourself for your own uses. It's happening all the time. All the Chinese models are based on this. Okay, so the key, though, is self-iteration. That Anthropic is saying that they are very close to the ability to improve themselves autonomously. Now, already 80% of the code from one iteration of their model to the next one, 80% is done by the AI itself. The 20% is other people going, nope, and changing it materially. It's not because it can't. It's because they're injecting humans into the loop in this particular instance. Billy Joe says, not sure cell phones are a good example of tech that's good for humanity. Tell that to everyone in India who ever had to call an ambulance. Or Africa, where they didn't ever lay landlines because it wasn't financially viable. But now everybody can talk to each other because of cell phones. Of course they're better. They sure put a hitch in a serial killer's get along. Now that kids have phones, they're harder to snatch. Billy Joe says, jargon cycle sounds like word police bullshit, way to ignore someone's point. Or you can, I could say that you throw jargon in like a bullet point or a bumper sticker to avoid the depth of the conversation necessary to actually deal with what we're talking about. So, point being, right now, Anthropic's model can do 80% of its own coding for its next iteration. And they have 20% because they're interacting with it. In theory, a lower level model, one generation behind this, could iterate the next one, 2 generations ago, could iterate the next one in that generation all by itself. They're already there. But Anthropic keeps doing this, like acting like they're in charge of the guardrails. They went and talked to the Pope. And it's amazing to me how many people are suspicious, rightly so, of, say, Elon Musk or Zuckerberg or Sam Altman. But when the heads of Anthropic, who are offering what's approaching, they're a $950 billion company, approaching $1 trillion IPO, somehow they're taking hey guys, we got to slow down for safety's sake, seriously. I do not. I am not going to assume that they're the good guys because they are, I don't buy the wolf in sheep's clothing bit in any of these situations. We also have people in West Virginia who can't afford cell phones. Fuck those people, I guess. I grew up in Kentucky and we had one phone in our house. And it was on the wall in the kitchen. Again, if you're committed to, I think one of the things is a lot of people think that if you don't attack AI in concept and what it's doing, then you are 4-5 billionaires. And I'm telling you that those billionaires aren't smart enough to, they're not the ones building any of this shit. They're in charge of the companies and they're getting rich off of it temporarily, but they're also getting way out over their skis with these data centers, which are going to become obsolete. And specifically in the case of, I would say, Elon Musk in particular, he knows that one of the reasons why they're doing these quick and dirty turbines on his facility at XAI is because they're burning fuel as much as they can to train their model to try and catch up. I was just in Eastern Kentucky. Those wonderful people had landlines and cell phones. Yep, that's again. An imperfect system is not an excuse for the vilification of every other human being in a conversation. But here we go. So this is a key one. Remember this one. These systems approach the ability to improve themselves autonomously. That's the reasoning that they give behind why they're going to do this. Now, meanwhile, what is AI beyond people chatbotting and creating dreck? What is it actually being used for, where it's actually functional? One of the biggest advances is in medicine, that there are not enough human beings to do all the calculations necessary. And I'll show you another example where that they were looking at drug combinations to fight leukemia, because you just couldn't have enough people sit down or run tests, even if they were sitting at a terminal by themselves. Oh, thank you for, yes, CSL. Sorry, I'm clearing my throat again. I'll try not to do that. In particular, it was able to run through these combinations in a way that there just aren't enough people on the planet and that are in this field that could do this. AI can kill us autonomously. So could a virus. You know, there's a lot of those things, but nobody's saying we got to shut down all the flights because there's diseases coming from other countries. Except Trump during COVID, even if it included human beings from this country who deserve to be treated in hospitals in their own whatever. Okay, so this is let me show you this one. And I'm, by the way, I'm happy to have this argument with you guys left and right. That's what Friday AI is about. Is I'm going to give you the reality of this situation and not just the boogeyman. Because there are a lot of people who are invested in you believing in that boogeyman thing so that they can run away with it. So that you hate AI and you don't use it and you don't use the tools it would give you so they can get ahead of you. That's why. That's where almost all the messaging comes from. And you'll notice that, by the way, even when people clamor about AI being, or the data centers in particular, it doesn't change them. They end up getting made anyways. They end up getting built anyways. Unless they run out of use. Now, let's see. I'm going to show you real quick. Oh, yeah. This is really fun. And does anybody remember when personal computers were going to put every data clerk, or every clerk in the world out of business? Remember that? We'll also, if you'll recall, that was the big fear. You'll notice that nobody gave a crap about that past that point. Like once it happened, they were just, yeah. Everybody's going to get fired. Oh, I don't have to deal with another person again in this role. Okay, then fine. Where are we? There we go. Open this one. So much to cover. Hit the like, share the show, especially if I'm annoying you with this conversation right now. It's super crucial. There you go. I'm going to find it. Where are you, you silly thing? I don't know that was that long ago. This was fairly new. Beg your pardon. This is what happens when I have so many videos open about these elements. Breaking Moore's law, blah blah blah. Studying flat through. Found you. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, that's what we're looking for. Okay, so let me see if I can open this guy up. Where are you, silly?
Zone that actually work.
Hold on.
This
Hold on. There we go. Yeah, there you go. Now I got to look up the paper. Oh, whoops, discovery. Okay, so Google created a thing called co-scientist, and it is a series of AI agents, which you've heard a lot of clamoring about, and how they work. Let's see. Let me try to open this. Let's see. Oh, open this guy up. Yeah. So, Google released this thing called Co-Scientist. Co-Scientist is an agent bot farm, basically, that runs on a structure, which is this a supervising agent with a hypothesizing agent underneath it, multiple ones, who just go, what if we did this? What if we did this? What if we did this? And then it has a reflecting agent underneath that one that goes, because that's bullshit, because that would never work, because that, so it criticizes everything it does or kicks the tires on every idea. And then once they both agree, then the third one follows through and is like an iteration agent and runs the simulations using protein folding and all these other things. The premise of this is scientific discoveries driven by scientists generating novel hypotheses for complex problems that undergo rigorous experimental validation. To augment this process, we introduced Co-Scientist, a multi-agent AI system built on Gemini for structured scientific thinking and hypothesis generation. Co-Scientist aims to help scientists discover new original knowledge conditioned on their research objectives and prior scientific evidence. It formulates demonstrably novel research hypotheses for experimental verification. The system's design involves agents continuously generating, critiquing, and refining hypotheses, accelerated by scaling test time compute, which is the key. Because if you don't even think of it in the first place, you can't even run the tests. And if you had to wait on human beings to do it, you'd never be able to run the test. So that's where we get this guy. Or sorry, this guy. So birds don't exist, exactly. So this is key. The first AI designed coronavirus vaccine clears human safety trial. They also did they found multiple drug combinations where each of three drugs helps deal with leukemia, but combined it creates a sort of perfect storm and can help cure it. This is incredibly important advances in research. And this is the kind of stuff that, by the way, the data centers that are chunking a lot of this stuff out aren't just people babbling and asking for ways to kill their mate on, from ChatGPT. The big chunking stuff comes from things like this. And it's temporary. Did cars kill the rickshaw? No, actually, I don't think so. Yeah. Modern Warriors, we House of Chrome. Once again, in our system, a question we have to ask is, who has access to this? The National Institute for Health, the CDC, the care research facilities in Southampton and Cambridge. Therefore, everybody. And again, this is benefiting all of humanity in theory, but they are using these things. It's this is just a reality of it. Yeah, you will have access to the benefits of this. That's just a reality. As opposed to it not existing at all is the idea. NASCAR killed the rickshaw star. Exactly. Look, I understand some people are committed to panic. I get it. But again, these assholes are in the business of putting themselves out of business. That's the reality in these situations. Okay. So let's talk about, where is it? Excuse me. There we go. Yeah, this is it. Okay, here's. I think this is a good way to approach this. This goes. Let's go back to where. Okay, yeah. Let me show you something real quick. And that's tempting. Let me find this. It's so fun. Let me take you back in time, shall we? Let's go back to where we were to 1984. How to send an email.
With the assistance of the outside broadcast unit, we will be linking from the database studio to their home. Pat Green and Julian, welcome to Database.
Hello, Jane.
Hello, Jane.
Now, Julian, I
By the way, there is no way that guy's crawl space is not full of people.
see you have your computer linked to the telephone line. Can you tell us how you did that?
Yes, well, it's very simple, really. The telephone is connected to the telephone network with a British Telecom plug, and I simply remove the telephone jack from
Fancy.
the telecom socket and plug it into this box here, the modem. I then take another wire from the modem and plug it in where the telephone was. I can then switch on the modem and we're ready to go.
Look at the dials on the front of the modem. Like this is the remember the old rabbit ears that you used to have on a television set? This is the modem equivalent. I love how he just brushes her aside because remember how when nerds were real nerds,
The computer asks
not just people who knew a lot about Lord of the Rings, but like people with like zero people skills.
me if I want to log on, and
Yes.
it's now telling me to phone up the main Prestel computer, which I will now do.
So it's a very simple connection to make.
It's very simple on a dial phone.
Extremely simple.
The
And
modem.
I can actually
Yes.
leave the modem
The modem.
plugged in once it's done that without affecting the telephone. I'm now waiting for the computer to answer me. It asks with a tone, and then I just flick a switch on the modem and replace
I want you to watch how nervous he is to actually hang up the phone to see if it will work.
the receiver. And
Things are starting to happen.
things are starting to happen. The Prestel computer is now asking me to enter my own personal password,
Which I will do by elbowing Susan out of the way.
which I've now done. And it comes up with an opening screen.
Shall we play a game?
And Julian, can you tell me, what is Micronet?
Well, Micronet basically is an area of Prestel that's specially designed for microcomputer users. It has a lot of facilities. It has a magazine-type page of
You can reach this guide to Micronet 800 by keying 01 from any page. Nice. What could you learn? Micro Magazine was on page 10. Page 11, what's new today? Daily news, software reviews, your letters. Oh dear. Other features. Telesoftware. That means porn, by the way. BBC programs, Spectrum programs, software feedback. Other programs, Apple, Pet, Tandy.
what's new today, the daily
Electronic mail, telex, and directory. Contact your own bulletin service. Yes, where the pedos used to gather before they had Epstein Island. Talk back to Micronet 800.
news, reviews
And they put the ads at the end because it's English.
of the current software that's available. There's a letters page so people can write in. There are programs available on Micronet that you can load directly down the phone line. Some of them are free, some of them you do have to pay for.
Now, Pat, whose computer is it?
Well, it's a cooperative, really. We all have a part share, but Julian and I mainly use it.
It's a cooperative.
And
But this is our communist computer owned by everyone in the building. It happens to be in our unit, so we can always just lock the door.
why did you buy a computer?
Well, I was very interested in the new technology and didn't want to be left behind. I don't think it's only for the youngsters at school now. I think us older ones will have to learn a lot about it.
Us older ones. She's nearly 27.
And what do you use the computer for?
Well, for keeping household records, such as what I have in the freezer and people's telephone numbers and addresses, I use it as a word processor for my letters, which always come out perfect now. And
It is funny. She's lovely. She's got a lovely Kate Jackson haircut from Charlie's Angels.
most exciting thing I find is the mailbox where I write to other people on the Prestel system.
And who have you written to recently? You got any examples?
Yes, I sent a message to my doctor asking for a repeat prescription, and he's left the prescription for me in the chemist.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Pat and Julian. We'll be seeing you later in the programme.
Bye,
Bye,
Jane.
Jane.
Bye. Hello, bye. If you'll recall, when this, yes, Notepad OS, exactly. That was in 1984, the year that computers were supposed to, kill us all. Nerds. Kate Jackson was better in Dark Shadows. How dare you? Dang, I was older when email came along. So, technology has been, in theory, replacing workers forever. The key, though, in this circumstance is that one of the reasons why there's a big freak out and why it's all over the news when you didn't hear this shit years ago was because when it automated, oh, that's cool, Andrea, thank you. When it involved getting rid of jobs on assembly lines, it wasn't that much noise about it. You could think of all the movies like Gung Ho and others that were about jobs being moved to Japan or Asia in general and being taken by another person. But there weren't a lot of kind of John Henry stories about automation in car plants because the people that were making the money at the time didn't give a rat's ass. But why are you hearing about it now? Because the white collar class, the tech billionaire crowd themselves, they're the ones panicking. Why? Because they're the ones that are going to be put out of work by this. Yay, you got your Choose Less Evil shirt. That's excellent. BBC is born too easy. I heard about loss of jobs for decades, except they were mostly being shipped overseas. Exactly. Well, yes, we have outsourced it to artificial intelligence just in another country, for the record. Yes, and Liberal Dan's going to be joining us in about 10 minutes. We're going to continue the conversation in that regard. But no, it is by no means BS. It is not. I hate the way that my first Atari games, when Chuck removed them, became the see-through when Activision came along. Well, don't even get me started on the fact that that the first video games I loaded onto a computer to play, I did on audio cassette. I miss Radio Shack as well. But point being is that there was a period by which we were going to there was a point by which everybody was going to lose their job. But while it was happening, it was just kind of something that people worried about on the street level, but it really never made, it was always about like the amazing aspect of automation, right? And because it wasn't affecting the people that owned the newspapers or ran them. Now, the fear, hold on, I'm looking at the staff chat. Yes. I see that. Yes. What am I missing? Good. All right. That these are, here we go. And this annoys me too. Jeffrey Hinton, for example, is probably one of the biggest doomers out there right now. They call him the godfather of AI because of his belief that he wouldn't be the first person to believe that his creation is sentient. But these are the kind of headlines you're going to see everywhere. Hinton, AI is conscious. And his argument seems to be that AI is, we should assume it's conscious because it seems conscious, which is incredibly stupid. No. I think you can practice kindness when you're speaking with an AI, but I think that's more like to keep the habit of being a decent person. Yes, Andrea? Yes? I'm getting unable to start the call. Oh, no. Okay. I don't know why that is. Let me make sure he's got the right link. He should, but I'll give you that one just to see. And he might need to make sure he's using a Chrome browser. Sometimes that's a thing. But my interview thing is turned on. We're ready for him whenever he can. The boogeyman story, I got to tell you, I'm just not buying it. I refuse to panic. I know people want me to. I know it's crucial to their argument somehow. But logically, materially, in terms of fucking physics, there is no way that the AI companies reach the goal they want and isolate it to the point where they're the only game in town. They are also all racing towards the same goal, and along the way, in their wake, leaving tools that are plenty good for most things. They are literally putting themselves out of business. I don't believe you are taking a holistic look at this. I am specifically taking a holistic look at this. I think there's a lot of myopathy in the hatred of billionaires as a bumper sticker, and that these billionaires actually have control of what they're using, and that this industry is like every previous industry that, by the way, we adapted to as well over time. I want to partner in AI, not a slave. Yeah, well, that's depends on how you treat it, right? Oh no, I'm not saying don't hate billionaires. Hate whoever you want. If you want to live with hate in your heart, knock yourself out. If you think hating helps, I will be busy regulating or getting my representatives to regulate these businesses, as opposed to wasting my time fuming around my kitchen because somebody's rich in an industry I have no control over. Like, I don't wake up that way. My life, my family, and everything is, and the people I interact with, the rest of the world is actually important to me. So the idea that I'm going to waste even a second going, oh, Sam Altman, is, yeah, I know. It's amazing. And I'm fine. You know what? This might be something where I was going to say earlier, open up to the actual chat room until we get our friend Liberal Dan in here, who should be here any minute. Pet AI and call it George. Last year, you actually followed and pointed out the Texas stock price on the stream. The reality is we live in an unrealistic world as far as real economics. Yeah, that doesn't mean it has value, though. You can make money. You can make money selling crack, I suppose, but that doesn't mean you should do it or you should vote with your dollars towards it. I'm not going to. One day if Elon Musk steps down and there's somebody sensible in place that's a lot more aligned with what SpaceX and the other companies might want to be doing, fine. But it's not based on any reality. Right. It's a meme stock. And I'm not going to put my money towards it, even if it would make money out of just my own moral inclination. Hey, there he is. I see him in there. The Liberal Dan's in the thing. Let me, I'm going to open up the window for him. Give me 1 second. And we'll bring in the, is this the thing? Yeah, there we go. I have to switch out the names on here. All right. And we'll get, why does these windows just pop up all over the place? Like, it's madness, I tell you, madness. Let's see. Oh, girl. Dang. There we go. Okay. So let me put you in here, and he's guest one. So let me bring in Liberal Dan. I think. Can you hear me okay? Let's see. Maybe you can. Yep, you can hear me okay. I'm going to bring you in, and I think I should be able to hear you at this point.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. Welcome. Good to have you with us.
There you go.
Yeah. So I've been trying to explain. And and maybe you could be the representative of the folks that are dubious in my chat room about this particular idea that it's premised on a couple of things. One is that AI, being a software-based reality, as technology, is in reality different than all other previous technologies, like digging up oil, gold, minerals, lithium out of the ground, printing, making batteries, that kind of stuff, physically producing something that you only have access to the resource to make and specifically have control over the output on. Very different than every other industry. And anybody who's downloaded Olama and started looking at the free models that exist, that you can just, the open source models that exist, knows that this is very different. You could not download a car in the 1950s and start building it like chitty chitty bang bang till it had fucking wings and a parachute thing and took you back in time. It is wholly materially different, so much so that it is hard to capitalize in terms of standard capitalism. What most people talk about with capitalism is resource capitalism. Not, you have a great idea for a new mousetrap, you create it and you sell it and people buy it because it's better than the other mousetrap that they had. That's not what most people think of when they go, ooh, capitalism. What they think of is, I'm standing on oil or gold or farmland, and if you want anything that comes out of the ground here, whether it's food or gold or oil, you got to come to me, and I can name my price. And I'm only here because I was born on top of it, or I killed the people that used to live here, or I took it by force. Like Trump says, we should keep the oil, right? Those are the, those are the areas where I think when people go grind on capitalism, and rightly so, they're talking about resource capitalism, which also has an ended runway, but it takes longer to see. I don't know what your experience is with AI, or if you've played around with it at all. I spend a good portion of my week like experimenting with all the different ones. I'm not committed to one. I don't sell one of them. I don't hand out, coupons for it, and I don't promote any of them. I literally have subscriptions to each one to keep track of sort of the horse race that they're in. And so what I'm drawing from my own attitude about this is based on my experience with those things. What have you used, and what's been your experience in, about this particular topic? And then we'll get into the fact that apparently Trump's Iran deal is falling apart. It's a shocker.
Well, I mean, you did see the Sparklerverse video that I made, that kind of made you look like a cross between Stamos or whatever. So
sure, right.
So I've been using, one system to try to, make, I use one system to make the music. I use another system to make the videos. Right. And I've had several songs that I've done about that. I've also been using it to take my long form shows and chop them up into short, digestible little bites or whatever, which has actually really helped my productivity a lot. Because of the fact that, it allows me to put up more content on my channel much more quickly. And it also has caused me to have much more, like I was a while ago, like last year, I was like struggling at about like 3,000 to 5,000 views a month. And now I was getting, and after I started doing this, it's been like, 80, 90, 100,000 views a month. And for a channel, I'm still struggling to get up to 2,000 subscriptions. And for that, it's I'm seeing some growth, but it's been really helpful on a productivity on a productivity level. So I've been using it for that. I use it sometimes for research as well. Sometimes I'll have to, I often will double check what I get, when I
of course
do that sort of thing.
That's one of the other reasons I have multiple. That's one of the other reasons why I have multiple versions, because I will check their work against each other to see if they spot their own flaws. So I'll get like an infographic made to show something on the show just to be silly about it. And I will run that infographic through a couple of other models to see if they spot anything inherently wrong with it, and doing, and also checking it myself to see if it's, if they all are missing, if they're all gapping the same thing.
And like several of like the kind of the short form videos that I've made outside of the live show, what I've done is I'll like throw it into ChatGPT or whatever, and I'll say, hey, I want to make a 400 word script that has to do with this topic. I want to hit these points, and then make something that give me some information about it, make a script, and then I just like go through it, and I'll make it sound more like me instead of sounding like ChatGPT. But I'll basically, a lot of times I think it does do a good job of kind of, when I put in my points, it does a pretty good job of saying exactly what I want it to say. And then I've even thrown it into one of those video models, and it mimics my voice, and it makes it sound like me. The weirdest thing is that I'm originally from Baltimore, and I don't really have a Baltimore mid-Atlantic type accent. Like, you can't really tell. Like, there are some words that people from Baltimore will say that I don't, or don't pronounce it that way. The
As
AI
somebody
version
from
does.
Chicago, I don't understand what you're talking about, but I get it. Get in general. Yeah.
But the AI version actually did say something as if I was from Baltimore, more so than myself, which I found very mind blowing. It was very strange, but
Because it chose that detail because it thought that was an important detail when it looked you up and who you are and what you're saying. So it knew you were from there, so it factored that in.
maybe.
Yeah. Well, so what that's created for you is basically employees where you couldn't afford an employee. There's no situation I think where a channel my size or your size could afford the workers that say the Daily Wire or the Blase or Candace Owens or any of these others have, not to mention the bot farms in Russia that are watching their shows and boosting them artificially. We couldn't compete with that because we couldn't afford to hire the humans to do it. And in the old days, you only had two options. One, have no other life and only post 24/7, just stay online and grind, don't spend time with your family or your friends or your kids or whatever for at least 5 years, like a teenager in their bedroom who just does it after, all summer long and after school all year. Or I suppose you could outsource, what little money you made, you could buy bots with it, artificially pump your channel up, like cheat to do it. But
Right.
you could never get to the point where, like, I'm going to hire an editor, I'm going to hire a producer, I'm going to hire somebody that will cut these clips. That was not an option for you or I. It wasn't like when, at that level, period, end of story. And nobody was lining up to volunteer to do it, nor would I expect anyone to do it. Right. It's my
Right.
show. It's my ass. Like, if I want to get, I want to grow, I'm just going to have to do it. But now there are these tools that are available for, in some cases free, in other cases $10 or $20 a month, which, the ROI on that is extraordinary if you just get a modicum of growth, right? You'll make that $20 a month back in a short order of time. In the same way that it costs you to have a website. You have to pay to keep your web name and all that kind of stuff, your URL and all that stuff. Over the years, I've had houseparks.com since 1993, and there were certainly years in there where the idea of paying my $150 to $250 or whatever to maintain my URL was a huge bite out of what money I had in my pocket, but it ended up long-term being worth it. So and so it's not that dissimilar from earlier technology or the ability to use Dreamweaver to make your own website that could compete with, the kind of companies that have these giant, web designer firms within their company, right? Never mind Spotify and all the things, and Teespring, which I sell shirts on, or Twitch. I'm sure, if you have the store on there, you're able to make goods on there, these are things that are just available to new and startups like us that just weren't there. And AI is one of the most crucial parts of it. Now, granted, I intentionally use it in silly and stupid ways to point out the fact that I think, by and large, a lot of it is still in its silly and stupid phase. Like this background, which looks like a lab, and this little robot arm that just keeps moving nonstop, and it says humans, the original untrained data set. And which is a joke I made about people having a short context window being the new way of calling someone a moron. Right? So, yeah. And then intelligence is code, consciousness is the bug, right? Like, I'm dicking around on purpose in these situations. I even made my my shameless promo thing, which goes like this.
Time for a shameless plug. Oh yeah, it's shameless plug time.
Which, for the record, is to remind everybody that Nerd Halen's going to be in San Jose a week from today, and in California, and in Denver the week after that. Hold on, let me go back to here. Where are we? Go back to there. There you go. So those kind of things, like making those things and being just kind of a silly dick about it, are Gino says, or you could have an uncle that runs TYT, or David Geffen giving you $25 million to jumpstart the organization, and then saying you don't take any corporate money when you're incorporated, and that you don't take any, you're against millionaires and billionaires, where you wouldn't exist had one of those benevolent millionaires given you a bunch of it for your channel. And then somehow you and I are the dicks because we're using, AI to cut short forms of our actual content, of us actually talking,
Right.
so that we can keep up with their shorts machines that they have.
Well, my big thing, when you use it, when we're using, the tool, I mean, I view it a lot like the industrialization, though, even though it is software versus hardware. A lot of people are concerned about jobs and AI stealing their jobs or whatever. But, I think a lot of times with enhancements in technology, as we move forward, there's always going to be that concern. There's always going to be the concern that we're going to have to worry about, that and how we deal with that. So I think that's an overall thing that's not just stand alone with AI. Maybe people are afraid of it because they see companies moving to it really quickly, maybe like, larger layoffs than they may be expected or whatever. And we should, as a society, have ways to deal with that. My biggest concern with AI is less, that and more of the, I just want to make sure that it's properly regulated. I want to make sure that every other, big business is regulated as well. There should be rules about how individuals can use it. I know some states are, passing rules, banning, you making deep fakes or whatever of, people doing things that they're not doing, especially minors, and that's important to do.
Yeah.
There's that big thing that I talked about on my show about the Lake Tahoe and their energy, where 49,000 people in Lake Tahoe might lose their power because part of the problem is that I think Liberty Power is the one that controls Lake Tahoe. And part of that is that they had years to try and find new power sources and hadn't yet done so. But now that there's new data centers opening up in Nevada and the other energy company is saying, hey, we want to, do that. I personally think that if you are going to open one of these large power consuming data centers, regardless of what it does and if it's AI, if it's just a regular old data center like Oracle, it should be treated like any other economic development type thing, where if you wanted to build a new community or a new housing area next to an existing community, you have to make sure that you're not going to, you can handle the power drain that's going to be happening from these new people. You have to make sure that the drainage is taken care of so you're not flooding. You have to make sure that you're going to have adequate water. You have to do all these things. So those sort of things should be done also with these data centers, where you need to be able to say, hey, maybe y'all should make your own, make your own power, have things like, say, look, create solar farms or whatever, so you can generate your own power and maybe even sell some back. And then, as you were talking about before, there's an incentive there, because as you're developing and improving the technology, and you're causing and you're needing less and less power, then you can push more power back on the thing, and you can actually start making more money off of the fact that you're not generating even more power than what you need, and now you can create the power. But
sell
of
it
course,
back to
the big oil companies are not going to go with that, because the big oil companies are incentivized to put down, air, wind power, solar power, whatever, because it's renewable, and so it then reduces the demand on the fossil fuels, which then makes the fossil fuels cheaper, and they don't want to see that. You have Donald Trump, who I've called the man of La Maga because he's the modern day Don Quixote. He sits there and he's, fighting the windmills or whatever, and say, oh, they kill the birds. Fossil fuel industry kills more birds annually than the birds are killed by the windmills, by the turbines, and skyscrapers kill even more birds than that.
That's right. So, I feel terrible about the the windows in our kitchen, because we've not killed any birds, but we've knocked a couple of them on their ass just because they were trying to attack our cats because they had a nest nearby, and they thought, that cat's too close to me, I'm going to scare him, and then they just ran into the window. We literally had like a bird-shaped stain on the window, which is basically all the oil on their wings, just leaving this like Batman symbol on the window. Can I just say real quick, this is why elections matter, and all the people who are flipping out about data centers and sprawl and the environmental costs and this stuff, which are valid and worthwhile, that ship has sailed, because 6 million Democrats or Obama voters or Biden voters sat out the last election and gave the White House to Donald Trump to take away, to put Lee fucking Zeldin in charge of, and Doug Burgum in charge of what the rules will be for these organizations. I agree with you 100% that the standard for the building of these things should be equal to and or greater than the building of a new community or a giant smelting factory or whatever else, because by and large, you don't even get the jobs from this facility that you would get from, say, a factory that's being built, where you could kind of go, I don't know, yeah, we should tax them a lot or whatever, but the jobs will balance out the cost of the community and that kind of stuff. So they're going to hire a bunch of people in this auto factory or battery factory, so we'll give them a pass. Those kind of arguments go out the fucking window, because these data centers, but for the occasional person that has to walk through and perfunctorily check a box, if they're even needed at all, don't even need fucking lights inside them, much less people. So the draw is 100% digital and 100% outsourced to a company that isn't even in the fucking state. Now, one of the other aspects of this is that California has data centers that like data center growth that charts with everybody else like, oh my fucking God. But they also have more small data centers, not these giant sprawling Abilene, Texas style ones, because all the Silicon Valley startups that are there, technically speaking, if you buy a row of GPUs and set it up in your garage, it's technically a data center. You're just drawing from the regular grid and whatever. So by volume, yeah, there's a lot of them, but they're not these huge, ridiculous ones. Where are the big, ridiculous, toxic ones showing up? Red states, places who voted for Donald Trump. And I hate regulations. One of the things we're proud of, we get rid of more regulations than anybody else. And then these motherfuckers are downwind from this shit, and I'm sorry, I just have zero sympathy for them. I'm not cheering on the data centers, but I'm also going like, maybe this is what it takes for the people around Abilene, Texas, to learn that environmental regulations are not the villain.
It's the find out phase. A lot of people are in the find out phase, and I do like seeing the find out phase when the people, like, I live in Louisiana, they're opening a data center and people are complaining about that.
Right.
And like,
and which way did Louisiana vote?
The funny thing in Louisiana, the thing I'm having the most fun watching are the people there's like the governor of Louisiana is really supportive of like the carbon sequestration projects or whatever, which are basically just, stealing land from people and big bailouts to, big companies to give them money. But then the other conservatives that are like, well, we don't want this. We don't want these big handouts to the oil companies. I'm like, what? And so it's great seeing the two people in the Republican Senate runoff right now. One of them who was endorsed by Trump is supporting them, and one of them that wasn't endorsed by Trump, even though he worked for Trump, is very much opposed to them. Now, he's also lying because he says that these carbon sequestration projects are part of the Green New Deal. Green New Deal folks don't want this thing. They don't want carbon sequestration because it's encouraging the use of continued use of fossil fuels.
I want to say it's called, I'm going to get this wrong, the burner paradox, which is, let's see, let's see, oh, wait, no, that's the wrong one. Hold on. What's the paradox around steam engines and coal use in England is one of the things that is driving the conversation around this. And the idea was Javon's paradox. Sorry, I had to look it up. Javon's paradox. Javon's paradox is that he didn't want steam engines to become more efficient because they were worried they were going to run out of coal in England. And he was worried that if you made them more efficient, it wouldn't it would increase the use of coal because you would find more uses for steam engines over time. The problem with the panic around it is that they continued to get better and better. And yes, more things were found to do this, but they also took away a lot of other uses of coal in the meantime, so it kind of worked its way out. It was a bullshit paradox, but it has been used as this boogeyman that that the ad absurdum or ad infinitum aspect of technology will always become the attack of the paperclips.
Right.
And for people that don't know, this is the idea that everybody's afraid that either the gray goo or paperclip fear is that you tell an AI automated factory just to make the perfect paperclip, and it decides it must make paperclips, and therefore it must mine all the resources it needs to make paperclips until the world is filled with paperclips because nobody can shut it down. It's taken as kind of real. It's taken as like that could actually happen. It's gibberish though, because the access part of it and the idea that it's alone in this is like the Skynet idea. Skynet in the Terminator storyline only works because there's only one.
Right.
It's because there isn't a Chinese Skynet and a Russian Skynet, and the Saudis have their own little Skynet, and then there's 5 companies in the United States that are jockeying for position against Skynet and whatever. It's just one dude with a fucking, early, like late 80s, early 90s, terminal in his house going, I figured out how to make it super smart. That's it. Well, if he could figure it out, so has a bunch of other people. And he's in competition with those other people. So the Javon's paradox idea is that that's how AI is going to be. That it's going to, if you make it, or in the case you were bringing up about environmentalists don't want the sort of renewable aspect of these things to get better because it will, or carbon sequestration or carbon buybacks, is because it will further the use of carbon fuels because it'll justify it through the purchase of those other things. But at the same time,
Right.
the way it does it, those carbon buybacks, those are sold to energy efficient companies that are making solar or wind or whatever. And if the government's going to cut those things off, the only funding they're going to get ahead, kind of like you and I using these AI tools to grow our channel, the only way that like renewables will get a shot, because oil has been subsidized since it fucking showed up and still is,
Right.
but they're cutting subsidies for renewables. The only money that would be going to these renewables, besides what they could churn out on their own using regular market trends, which are, again, artificially depressed because of the subsidies that go to fossil fuels, especially coal under the Trump administration, the only place that comes from is from carbon credits.
Right.
And if those don't exist and people don't use them, or they shut them down, or they shut down the program, the carbon's still going to be emitted into the atmosphere. There's just no money reclaimed from it that will go to renewables. It's such a fucking self-own, like an own goal or shooting ourselves in the foot. It drives me nuts.
And the funniest thing about the whole conservatives arguing against it is that conservatives argue all day long that putting carbon dioxide into the air is not harmful. Trees need carbon dioxide. And my usual argument for that is, well, water's needed for life too. But if I drink 5 gallons of water right now, I'm going to die. But
Right.
the same conservatives will be like, well, if you put the carbon dioxide into the ground, it's going to be somehow harmful. I'm like, make that make sense. If it's harmful, if it's not harmful to put into the air, why is it all of a sudden magically harmful to pull it in the ground? Like a lot of times they have a problem being consistent with the arguments that they bring up. So,
Right. And this is, by the way, it becomes like a habitual way of talking about things that almost make you miss the real threat. That I would
Right.
argue that in terms of climate change, getting to the end of fossil fuels faster is better. The slightly accelerationist nature of carbon credits is by no means even a lesser of two evils in this situation versus not having carbon credits at all and just the shit burning worldwide. Because, and again, multinational companies that want to do business in the United States and Europe have to pay to offset their carbon credits, even if their facilities are in Africa or in Asia, where they pollute nonstop and don't give a shit about the people downstream. They're going to do that. So
Right.
the idea that, that it's accelerationist to allow for the purchase of these carbon credits, which again, pay for renewables and development of renewables, it's almost like this harumph, if we can't have everything, nobody gets anything. I'm gonna, I'd rather go down fighting. Or we're like, why do you have to go down at all? Why can't you keep fighting for what you're doing and not go down at all? It seems like you're just going down out of for spite.
There's a dirty comment that could be made there too, but
Yeah, understood. Yeah. I recognized that midway through the sentence, and I was like, "Oh dear."
If my computer that I usually use for the podcast was actually working, I would play the George Takei. Oh my!
Oh my! Right.
I'm in the process of trying to deal with the fact that my old laptop or my current laptop is not acting very well. So I had to use a previous one that I had for work, and I think that one was blocking my connection. So that's why I had to connect here with my phone. So.
We all run into that eventually.
I feel really weird having to complain about tech issues, but I'm I'm a software side guy. So
I'll just use that one instead.
There you go.
Yeah. So, so the universal doom law of Javon's paradox and this idea that billionaires somehow magically control these things, which I can't stress enough. They don't. This is not the same as like the Saudi royal family being on top of oil. This is not the same as someone owning it. This is much closer to saying that Mark Zuckerberg owns all the best streets in the metaverse. Right? He owns the best real estate in the metaverse. If you want to put a big Coca-Cola banner when people enter the metaverse through the one door that you have to go through on their setup, he owns the best place for that, where almost no one goes and no one has to go and only exists virtually. That's what this is. This is not, they can't create a gated community around this because it just doesn't work that way. It cannot. Otherwise, they will be outpaced by someone else. Never mind the US ones, the Chinese models, Norway and England are working on their own big, large language models and large world models. If any of these go, we're the gatekeeper, you can't get in except through us. If they ever try, only the elites can come into this thing. 9 other companies are waiting for like, hey, we got to open fucking door over here. We only want to make $3 off this. We don't need to make 20. Fuck those guys. And when you got, 9 billion people on the planet and half of them are going to use AI for some form of work or social function at some point, you don't need $20 a month or $100 or $200 a month, except when you're training the fucking thing. But then once that's over, it's a nickel. And even Sam Altman was talking about treating it like a utility, like intelligence would be like electricity, like we'll all fight for credits, like in Star Wars, trading spice for AI time. But again, it's just, I can't stress this enough. This is not, hold on, wait, I actually have a theme song for all these people who are afraid of that particular, That's not how it works. There you go. Yes, that's not how it works. Yeah! You've got it all wrong. It's a losing game. So, right. That's, that's right. That's I understand people's concerns for, say, Bill Gates buying up farmland. Right? That makes a lot of sense to me. Or BlackRock buying up apartment buildings, right?
Right.
That makes total sense. Zero complaints about that, right? This is not a material realm. This is not an area where they are guaranteed that they have a head start on the rest of humanity, or even you and I. Okay, this would be the best way to explain it. You're in IT. And I'm named after a computer. So we basically have lived the same nerd life for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think you're aware of how, like, what available models are like exist right now. Where with either Olama or LiveML or any of the other programs that you use that you can kind of run one locally. That if you and I decided to sit down and dedicate the next 6 months to taking the best available models that are local, downloadable to a, and we bought like 4 Mac Studios, ran them together, and then hooked up bought a bunch of solar panels to kind of put on a truck to offset the cost of the energy on it. But even those things don't use a ton of energy anyways. And decided we're going to run these things for 6 months, run up our power bill though during that time. But after that 6 months, the model will be trained and will run on a 25-watt computer with a very little draw from that point forward. And it would be, if we really, hunker down using DeepSeek and using Ollama and using the like OpenAI's the SOS or whatever, their open source one. If we used all of those, we could build a model that is pretty close to last year's frontier models within 6 months. And those models were 6 months away from being able to build themselves. And if we kept those things that did the same thing, take those models, the advanced model, and did the exact same thing, rinse and repeat, within a year, you and I would have a model that could iterate itself within certain limitations. Not using giant data centers. Because you can train your own AI right now. You can download a local one. It might be a little bit slower than the main ones, but not in milliseconds, not in a way you're going to notice. If you're trying to time a launch or an F1 vehicle, you'll run into trouble. But if you're a human being on human time, you won't have that. I don't think people grasp how this is what makes it different. Is not that it's going to be God eventually, which it is not. What makes it different is that it's democratizing faster than any other technology in history. Look at how long it took from cell phones to exist. 1973, when the first cell phones, made their first phone calls. Before everybody,
big giant block things that people carried around and plug into your car, and
you could just rest it in the tumor on the side of your head. You like smush it in like Play-Doh. I don't think that's the thing that people don't grasp, how this is wholly different. Right. The only limit, I guess, with us is that we would have to get the hardware to be able to handle it. If we get the hardware to do it and we can afford the energy to do it, then so there's a little bit of, I guess, of economies of scale that, makes them be able to do it easier than we can. But we can still, it's not as inaccessible as, perhaps like the cell phones were way back in the day, where as compared to now, where cell phones can be cheap, especially if you get a plan. Right. Let me, here you go. I'll show you this real quick because I got to tell you, I love this stuff. It makes me crazy. Okay, here we go. This is from 1979.
May I say, first of all, how much I appreciate your making time to talk to me like this.
If you'd be good enough to bear with me for a little while, I'll see if I can find those papers you want. I rather think they're across the other side of the office.
But it shouldn't take me too long to find them.
Gotta love the Monty Python aspect.
A colleague down
this
the
is
corridor.
mobile
he was
phone
expressing considerable interest in a couple of things that we spoke about the last time we had
how
the
is he
opportunity
walking
of having
around?
a chat. Though,
his phone's coming out of his jacket.
Seriously, I'll bet they're outside the building in the vehicle. So if you'll hold on for just a second, I'll check whether it's in here, and then we can proceed a little further.
And the car drives away.
Always to know whereabouts
1979, ladies and gentlemen.
But they don't seem to be here, I must admit.
Well, I can only conclude that I have lost them somewhere between here and home. And though that would be most unlikely...
Radio phone.
Hold on, this is it.
Is no ordinary radio phone. This device is a prototype whose trials are being carried out strictly governed by Home Office regulations. At the moment in the UK,
that was the government, by the way. It means in England.
Mobile phones are really little more than transmitter receivers which put the caller in touch with a post office operator who dials up the number you want and then connects your remote radio extension with the rest of the telephone network. Here is a device which allows you to dial yourself.
I love that it has a dial on it. It's like,
The rotary, yeah,
yeah, it's
rotary
like,
phone.
ladies and gentlemen, the first mobile phone, I'm able to carry this around, you might understand. One moment, I must place a station-to-station trunk call. Let's see. I'm doing Klondike Kale 41, calling Limburger 7594. Yes? Station straight. This is a mobile phone because I can walk away because it's not plugged in anyway. Stay where you are. These things were always touchy. I think I'm upside down.
I had an old style CBS microphone or whatever that I was looking for. I was trying to pull up and trying to do the bit. Like, oh,
thank you.
Good show, lad.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes,
Yes,
but
lovely, quite lovely.
There was a big part of this in England and the United States was like, this is only something that rich people will have, and rich people will only ever have these things. The problem is the way you get rich from a device like that is if everybody fucking has one. And the only way that everybody fucking has one is if it's cheap enough for everybody to basically have one. There will always be people who are cut out of that or whatever, but we live in a world right now where there are homeless people, literally, who have cell phones right now that steal Wi-Fi and power by, sauntering up to a Starbucks or finding an outdoor outlet someplace and pulling power from that because we live in the future. And that's not weird at all. That's, you know what I mean? That makes sense in this world. You would expect people that if they're homeless and trying not to be homeless or are street campers and just fine living that way, they're going to have a phone, and it's going to be a smartphone, interestingly enough. So there is this, I just find it ironic in these situations that these are all technologies, cell phones, stock trading software. Look at the computer that was on Eddie Murphy's desk in Trading Places.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. The part of the whole movie was that he had access to the ability to trade stocks in his office on that computer. That was a giant part of the step. For fuck's sake, the whole point of the opening of the Rockford Files was, oh my God, this guy's got an answering machine. So,
look, when I was talking about my show, I think it was yesterday or the day before, when I was talking about my first computer was like a 286, and I thought it was great. And then,
oh my God,
and then I upgraded to a 486 when I graduated high school, and on my way to college, and I was all excited over because I only had 4 megabytes of RAM, and I was going to upgrade, adding 8 more megabytes, so I had 12 megabytes of RAM, so I could run one of the games that I wanted to play, and that was a huge deal back then. And now it's just like, what? I can have much more power on your cell phone.
Yeah. And by the way, here's when things were only coming from rich people, for the rich people would only have these things.
We look at the future.
Yes, right. Mobile telephones.
Here comes a trailer truck out on the open highway, miles from the nearest town. Let's say it's important for someone to get in touch with the drivers of this outfit. How can it be done? What
if you want him to be able to text while driving? What could possibly go wrong?
Look at all the wrecks going on right now.
Look at that.
CL4 3592. This is Joe.
Hello, Joe. This is Bill. Where are you boys now?
On Route 30, headed for Centerville, about 25 miles out.
That's fine. We got a special. Can you pick up some stuff for the Ajax Company? It's at the Charleston Depot. Think you can?
It's at the depot. Said where to shoot him. Said shot him between the depot and the post office. This, oh my God. So the point being is that all along we've had these advances in technology. All along they've been going. There's been the sort of neo-Luddite, this is terrible, and the utopians who are like, this will solve every one of America's problems, and the world, ladies and gentlemen, right? And what the reality is much more in the gray area, which is not very sexy. It doesn't make for great thumbnails when it's like, it's got a both. It's got an upside and a downside. That's the reality. And especially when it comes to AI. Like the upside, I would say, outweighs the downside, clearly. And the downside, by and large, that most people are afraid of, like the data centers, which are reasonable, is a good reason to be disgruntled about this, are temporary, is my point. They are limited. They're closer to the carbon credit stuff we were talking about than they are to we're going to have this permanent ring around the earth where the AI will live because it will need all the power of the sun to run and all that horse shit. I watch actual movies like this all the time. They called women dames. Well, it was a kinder, gentler time. VH1's I Love the 40s. I believe me, I haven't ruled it out. I may still do that. But this is like, I remember when a hard drive was $1 a megabyte, and to edit a project that I was working on, it took my entire paycheck to buy a hard drive that was a 720 megabyte hard drive, and I made $718 on the project.
Right.
With the idea that, well, in the future, I'll be able to do several projects. Right? It's an investment in my future as an editor and a comedian. But this is this name says cheap AI doesn't feed your family. Well, it might, is the point. And it's certainly not having it isn't going to make the difference. And again, it's not like these. Again, I'm concerned. My one area is like if they were using farmland or water. It would be the biggest concern temporarily, if it's affecting, that kind of thing. Most of the water turbines that they use are filled up once with the same amount of water. They use a lot of water, but that water is recycled because it turns into steam in the heat and then it cools off and goes back into the system. So they fill one tank once and then that water cools the computers, turns into steam. The steam turns a turbine that actually cools it off, and then it drips back into the tank and fills it back up. And this is just it's like when an engine has synthetic oil in it and they just seal the engine shut,
Right.
It's much closer to that, as opposed to just taking potable water from the community forever and ever, or sucking up a river. Now, Elon Musk's early stuff with XAI in Memphis uses a lot of the river water because he just doesn't want to bother with the actual long-term function of it because he's not committed to it. That Colossus campus in Memphis is temporary and he's acting like it. That's why they're such shit. That's why they have methane turbines outside, why they're just parking them out there and they don't give a fuck about the regulations, because this is a pump and dump. He's just speeding through this, and then eventually they're going to move once it's trained and working, they're going to move it someplace else. They don't give a shit about Memphis. He didn't choose that site because of the hardworking folks of Memphis know their AI. It's a scam.
Right. And it's like with like the farmland, whatever. I think nowadays the more concerning thing with the farmers, I think, is the fact that the cost of fertilizer going up because of how Trump did this needless attack in frickin' Iran, and now he's basically allowing Iran to make more money off the Strait of Hormuz than they did before because because now fertilizer's more scarce, and as such the farmers are going out of business or whatever.
And AI becomes the boogeyman in a bunch of these areas. Like your energy costs are going up because of the AI data center nearby, which, by the way, has its own turbines and in theory isn't pulling anything from the grid. Most of even the one in Abilene, which is, by the way, being shrunk because OpenAI has already become more efficient and they're not bothering with it. They had plans to make it, twice the size of Manhattan, and now they're like fucking it off because they basically told Trump that just to get him to give them tax credits. But even then, people aren't bitching about the real reason people's energy costs are going up is because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz in the Iran war.
Yep.
Not because of self-isolated AI data centers, by and large. Now, do they have the potential for it? Sure. In Virginia, are they going up? Yeah. You know why? Because those are the government ones. Those are paid for not just through the normal utilities, because that's how all government facilities have to work. They have to pay the local utilities there. They don't get to build their own power plants because of how regulation goes, because we've written rules as Democrats over time that anything the government builds should be at best best practices both in labor and in energy usage of the actual area. So we can't build our own gas turbines and pollute the environment because we're not allowed to. So it's driving the price of energy up in Virginia specifically. But it isn't in Abilene, Texas, because they're just completely cut off. It's just creating an obnoxious humming noise from the fans and the machines themselves 24 hours a day that are going to drive fucking people crazy. But again, you're in the FO part, buddy. Like,
But my thing too is just like, I have, we all have our concerns, and we're going to be rest our concerns with like AI and stuff like that. But we can't let that be the distraction from all the other problems, like, from the fact that, again, needless war in Iran, spending, ridiculous amount of money. We now can't, we're not going to be sending Tomahawk missiles to Germany because we've blown our wad as it pertains to what we've done in Iran,
Right.
which then gives Putin more power with NATO because NATO is weaker because of our decisions. We have Gregory bovine excrement going to Portugal to a remigration summit to help put white nationalists and neo-Nazis across the world are looking at Donald Trump to say, hey, he's doing remigration in America and it's working, so let's now do it in Europe and make Europe white again, which, when I hear MAGA, make America great again, I'm always think it's make America white again. And when,
Sure.
the America they're talking about is the Confederate States of America, not the United States of America.
Exactly. Certainly not the union anti-slavery part of the country.
Right.
Also, I'd like to say for the record, the same thing is true, and Marco Rubio should be aware of this more than almost anyone, that his whole, like, we need to straighten out Cuba is so that the Cubans in Florida will move back. He's not interested in these folks becoming like dual citizens of Cuba and America. He wants them to leave. The Venezuela, one of the biggest, fuck the oil production, which is not happening at any scale. He's like, the oil, we're getting so much oil out of there. The oil companies are moving in. Well, if they're moving in, the oil isn't moving out yet. It doesn't work that way. They got a lot of years of work to do before any oil is extracted. This is all just horse shit. But one of the biggest reasons why Venezuela and why maggots got mad for an afternoon and then were okay with it, even though it violates his rules, is because no one who's Venezuelan in the United States has an asylum claim anymore. No
Right.
one. Even if it's still terrible for them, even if they go there and the cartels will scoop up their son and force him into a gang, and that's why they left, it's not governmentally based in theory because the State Department has changed our attitude towards Venezuela, so fuck off.
Of course, many of the Venezuelans we deported to the El Salvadorian prison, which is just a horrible place. So,
right. Well, and again, all sort of illegal removals aside, the reality is that's what they're doing this for. Is anybody who was from Venezuela who had a legit asylum claim or moved here, who's been here for years even under that asylum claim, can be shipped back to Venezuela now because they just don't have one anymore. That's what it's about. And if anybody came here for, that's working under the table or whatever, they can't even claim that political asylum, if they're caught, because they're like, that system doesn't exist anymore because we arrested a guy and his wife. The same thing is true of Cuba. They're just like, they want to round up all the Cubans that escaped communism and came to South Florida, which, by the way, all of them are Republicans. All of them are pro-life Catholics, and who escaped Cuba specifically for that point. But even that won't matter. That will not save you, people of color, from your fellow traveling conservatives. They want you out. Somebody in the chat asked,
I love seeing the folks that are like, the Hispanics for Trump or Hispanic MAGA folks, whatever, who are like, well, I voted for security, but not like this. And then all of a sudden they start seeing, people getting rounded up who they didn't expect to get rounded up. And they're like, oh, wait.
Well,
people are acting like Nazis, and
it's the same
now
as
you're surprised that they're acting like Nazis.
It's also the same as the Queers for Palestine situation. I mean, it's at a certain point, folks, you don't have to be for. You can be against a genocide of a group of people without pretending that they're also your friends, that there's this, enemy of my enemy is my friend situation is at best the enemy of my enemy is my frenemy. I don't automatically assume we share values. If you don't believe me, look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. They're all attacking Megyn Kelly. They're all attacking Donald Trump pretty vociferously. But in no way do I believe that they share an ethical umbrella with me ever.
Right.
So fuck them still. I just don't have
all those people, now going against Trump and now being not MAGA but America First or whatever, when even though you can't really separate the two, all of those people doing that just goes to show me how much the rest of the people who are left in MAGA, what is needed for those people to actually, change their minds if they would ever do it. I mean, at this point, Trump could actually start putting people in the camps, more beyond just, the detention centers, and then they'll be like, oh, well, whatever. They'll find some excuse for it. It's a cult. It is a cult, and so the way to get people out of cults all the times requires a lot of massive deprogramming, or at least you'd have to see him do something so bad, like he'd have to grab them or one of their family members by a part that they don't want to be grabbed by, and then even then they might make excuses for it. So
again, I'm not going to automatically, the way like Trump and Anna Kasparian and Candace Owens and all this overlap where they're kumbayaing, I don't buy it. I do think there is some manipulative value in what like Hunter Biden is clearly doing, which I find very smart. Right. But it's not, because he's trying to sell a book to MAGA now, the way Anna and Cenk and those guys are, where they're trying to like drag that audience over to their side. We've got about 10 minutes left, a little under that or whatever. What's your schedule, Liberal Dan, right now for broadcasting? Just so we.
Right now, normally it's Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Central, so 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. So, sometimes I'll start a little earlier if you end earlier. Otherwise, but I'm typically it's a hard start at 8 when I try to. Last week I was sick. We're both fighting coughs, we were both fighting sore throats or whatever. So I had, had to take off a bit. And then, of course, I have my laptop issues, but I've still managed to trudge through it and still do the show. Lots of other content that I have up there that's beyond the live content. I'm Liberal Dan Radio pretty much everywhere: Blue Sky, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. Any place you could go on social media to get, to find I'm there. And if I'm not and you want to see me there, I'll be more than happy to create an account there too. And have all different sorts of ways. I have Liberal Dan Radio Store. Like I actually used AI to create some of the T-shirts. Like the Man of La Maga shirt is great. It has tiny little JD Vance and Sancho Panza. I have I kind of borrowed your idea for the NFT. I made an FDT, and the D has a little Trump haircut on it. So it's nice. All that sort of stuff, and lots of different ways, but the most important thing I would ask for everybody, the 913 people watching, is like, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, just go to liberaldanradio.com, hit that subscribe button, comment, interact with some videos, help the algorithm, because Al Gore needs more rhythm. And I have a lot of the songs that they're one of the favorite songs that a lot of my listeners, watchers have is the Had Biden Done It song, where it's kind of like an EDM techno type song, basically showing how all the things that Donald Trump has done, if Biden would have done those same things, they would have been like, what? But Trump did it, so it must be okay. And so, check those out, share those videos if you like any of the ones to your social media channels, and just encourage other people to kind of help, get the views up, get the subscriptions up, so we can start growing, because we need to grow everybody from, the Stephanie Millers and you everybody needs to rise up, because we can't trust with like CBS, catering to Donald Trump and all the other major media channels, kissing Trump's ass to try and make sure they don't lose access. It's channels like yours, like Boston Brian's, mine, Stephanie Miller, all the other ones that, aren't beholden to these folks who are going to be giving the truth or be fighting back against this problematic administration that, and all of the crap that they're trying to do.
Especially coming into the election, which again, I would like to reiterate that while a lot of this technology started kicking off under Joe Biden or whatever, they were trying to, find some ways to regulate it as it grew. And then as soon as Donald Trump got in, he just operated as a blocker for its id to run wild. So any limitations you thought seemed reasonable or even slightly unreasonable, but erred on the side of safety, which I think is okay as well, those don't matter right now, as long as Donald Trump and the Republicans are in charge of everything. You might be upset at the slow walking nature of whether or not Bernie Sanders' complete bill gets to the floor or it goes through committee. By the way, it's obsolete before the ink is dry. Don't get me started. we have laws in the books that can already be used. We don't need a new law for this. The environmental regulations that exist just need to be enforced, and they will only be enforced if Democrats are in office. End of fucking story. I'm dead serious. I don't care if you think you have enough votes to pass a bill about limiting data centers. We have enough laws about environmental regulations, as long as they're enforced, to actually slow the more damaging parts of them. Much better than, of course, just taking your hands off the fucking reins and going, well, fuck it, America deserves 9/11 all over again. This is a crucial part of it. Vote Democrat, whoever it is, whether they're not liberal enough for you or they're too liberal for you. It won't matter, because it's the vote numbers long term that will matter, and that's the only thing that is going to keep in check this White House, keep bills that they want from going through and Trump signing them. If you want him to just sign dickless EOs all the time, this is how you do it. You fill the House and the Senate with Democrats. Fuck off on whether, yes, Fetterman's a dick. Yes, absolutely. And if you live in Pennsylvania and you want to vote next time against him, knock yourself out. But right now, that isn't a reason to not vote for whatever Democrat is available in your actual district, in your actual election, any more than Kristen Sinema or Joe Manchin, because of Arizona being a purple state and West Virginia being a red state, are a reason to hang that albatross around a Democrat from New York's neck. It's silly. Vote for Democrats, because if you want any of these rules followed, that's your only shot. By the way, somebody asked, go ahead.
I consider myself a leftist. I've moved more and more left, I think, as I've grown older. But I'm a pragmatic, progressive type person where, if you want to move every district to the left, sometimes what some leftists don't understand is that when you want to move everything to the left, sometimes that means supporting a centrist in a gerrymandered district.
Well, it certainly doesn't mean taking your hands off the wheels and letting a Republican think that it's a completely red district because you don't show up to vote, because you're not, we're not going to win anyway. So why should I even bother putting my thumb on our side of the scale? Well, because you can't run a full maggot in these districts if it's 60-40 or 55-45. If they think it's 80-20, they don't give a rat fuck what you say. So you have to show up and vote for the Democrat or the independent, who's got a better chance at winning. So it puts the fear of God in them, so that they recognize
and Trump endorsed candidates are underperforming Trump from 2024. So you have to get out there and get out and vote, and vote for the one who most likely is going to win. Now, if you have open primaries, it's great. But sometimes you just have to, sometimes you have to hold your nose and support the person.
And again, I would also say it is sure.
Go ahead.
With who? Go ahead. With who? You were going to say something.
I have my issue with Graham Plattner and some of the things that come about him. But if it comes down to him versus the Republican, I'd much rather him with all of his BS than the Republicans who are going to support Donald Trump's policies, who Donald Trump is infinitely much worse than anything that Plattner has been accused of doing. So.
Right. Again, if somebody's doing something with consensual adults, that's their business. I don't, This goes back to the Clinton era, whatever. He was an adult. She's an adult. That doesn't even operate on the same scale as Donald Trump being Jeffrey Epstein's wingman for 27 goddamn years. So don't get me started. So what I would say is, and I would love to have a conversation with you about what defines left or leftist or Democrat or liberal in those phrases, because again, I'm not a big fan of the labels because I see them used pretty slapdash. I think you could argue that TYT would view themselves as very left and very progressive, and yet their activities have been anti-progress and undermined and I believe actively support Donald Trump and his agenda while pretending to be fighting on the other side. So I don't necessarily think the label is enough, any more than Caroline Leavitt's cross doesn't mean shit to me. Right?
Right.
You don't get to just...
sometimes conservatives have gone so far to the right, they call Joe Biden a socialist. They can't see the difference between people who are actual leftists and centrist Democrats because they're so far gone. The difference between any of us is inconsequential. And I'm not the type of person who sits there and be like, there are some people who are leftists who are like, well, don't call me a liberal. I'm a leftist.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just like, I call myself Liberal Dan and I'm a leftist. So whatever. It's not a big deal. So
Right. And there's a lot of overlap in those phrases too, because what they just mean is, left of center, right of center, is leftist, or right wing, depending on how far you are to the edge. And again, we're in a situation where the crust thinks it's the pizza right now. And so everybody's convinced that the subset of a subset of a subset of the loudest people online that is, by the way, largely bots. I don't know if you know this, but bots took over human social interaction on social media this year for the first time officially. There are more bots than human beings on social media sites officially now. There have been for quite some time, but at least there was the illusion of it for a while. Now it's known, right? So I don't even, again, if the label standards are being set by artificial intelligence, that's so ironic that a bunch of people are like, I'm in a leftist or a woke right talking group or whatever. You're like, you don't even know if the other 9 people in your chat room are actually human beings. That's why sparklers are wonderful, because I meet them at shows. But So let me. We're going to end on this because we're right at this last little bit, and then we're going to send. We're going to raid Boston Brian, I think, this morning. But I want to show everybody a little bit of the physics reality of what we're dealing with. Let me start this up, and I'm going to turn off the audio on this so it doesn't drive us crazy. I showed everybody this the other day, and I'm sure you saw part of this as well. This is figure 3. And figure 3, this is Bob. There was Bob, Gary, and Doug, or am I just thinking of the McKenzie brothers? But it's sorted packages. This was 9 days straight. There were a couple of moments where it flubbed, but if you had 3 human beings working nonstop for 9 days straight, I'm guessing there would be some mistakes as well. But this is a soulless, repetitive job. But I know some people are like, what are the soulless people going to do for a living? Who aren't smart enough to do anything complex. What are we going to do with those people? The classism of the folks that like, it's not going to take my job, but it's going to, what are all the dumb people going to do? Right? We hear that all the time. This is a real part of this. This is happening whether we like it or not. The jobs numbers that came out in the United States last month were high. Hold on, we're going to get back to Nerd City. We're high this month. Why? Because by and large, the data centers are not new aspects of American life. They are things being taken from China and India and other countries where you're not allowed to sell the chips anymore, the advanced chips. You can only run on the old ones. If you want the newest chips, you got to use them in the United States or Canada. So that's where they're being built, or parts of Europe. And again, mile for mile, you're going to see more in England than you are in the United States, data centers wise. They use more natural resources there. They use more water, more electricity in England than they do in the United States. But per capita. And of course, when it comes to Donald Trump, what the fuck does per capita mean? It depends on where's where is it? Here it is. Yeah.
And when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what?
Right. So, this is these things. These things are gonna start producing themselves this year. This year. It's not an option. I'm telling you this because we are short workers in a bunch of different areas, in janitorial services at old folks' homes. In, if you don't think they couldn't use 2 more sets of arms every time they have to turn a body in an emergency room in a fucking West Virginia country hospital, you got another thing coming. I'm personally, as soon as one of these is actually available on the market, one of the top 5 that we're looking for, I plan on crowdsourcing one of these things and giving it to a charity, because the ability for every charity to have one of these things doing all their janitorial, clerk and setup work and that kind of stuff before work starts during the day would make these charities more efficient. So that's where I think I mean, put your money where your mouth is. If this thing's going to be moving its arms around, why should it just be at an Amazon, mailbox center when it could actually help, be helping people with, think of charities, again, using AI, using these devices to 5x and 10x. Imagine these things on construction sites for Habitat for Humanity. Right. That's my goal for them, primarily. That's where I think they should go first. I think that's where they first have to go. Okay, so this is, I'll pause this. That was day 9. They just went. This is the facility. This is in San Jose, California, where, by the way, Nerd Halen will be performing a week from tonight. Hopefully my voice will be back in shape. See all those people? Those people are making robots. They will still be making the elements of these robots. They will be assembled by other robots, but the actuators and all these parts are going to be made in-house by human beings for a good long while, because even with those articulate fingers, it's still going to take real technicians like that guy and that lady soldering these things together. But they're going to be cranking them the fuck out, and they're going to be able to do kind of the dumb, slow-handed work of that we don't have people for. We don't have them. They don't exist. They just don't. Like, Japan is going to get a shit ton of these things of their own making because of just hospice care. Being able to turn people so they don't have bed sores, you need arms to do that. And again, people is like, great, more plastic. These are, some of these are carbon fiber and glass. And again, the plastic, it might as well, I have no doubt that parts of them are going to be like, these are recycled. Somebody's going to come up with that one next one. And you can replace all those parts as you do. Again, if you have an old car and you're buying a new one just to buy a new one, that's a little silly. But if you can imagine this thing, this is the shittiest this thing is ever going to get. This is the worst this thing is ever going to get. And think of all the things that it could be used for. Crossing guards, I don't know, whatever else, at a school that can't die if it gets run over by a car. Patrolling facilities or school campuses, when kids are around and like, instead of one of these cricket dog things. Literally working in a school lunchroom. Right?
Right. Absolutely.
And not replacing the lunch lady, but helping. Cleaning up, doing the cleanup afterwards. That kind of stuff. You're still going to have janitors. You're still going to have human beings who are going to do that, but they will be the fine touch janitors or cleaners that will be working, in hotels and the like. These things will just change the bed sheets, which are nasty, and no human being should have to do that in a hotel for a living.
And I guess the main thing people just need to consider is that, if you have technology that's coming, instead of being afraid of it, try and utilize it to try and make yourself more efficient, more productive, and then make that adds more value to you if you're able to then leverage the technology that's coming out to make you a better worker, more efficient worker, etc.
And we were already doing this. We were either bringing in immigrants and having them work under the table for free, for like very little money, more than they could make at home, and they send some of it home, so they're willing to put up with that shit, but living in fear all the time and having to, live in those ways. And by the way, they won't be just the United States is the only country that has these. A bunch of countries are making equivalents in Europe, in China. There will be versions of these that everybody's going to be using, even in impoverished countries. I would argue even more so, especially in emergencies and that kind of shit. You'll drop a ton of these in an area and they run in, if they get washed away in a flood, nobody gives a shit. But these things are, we've been outsourcing the work that these things do already. We're just doing it to people that get paid under the table and are treated like shit, or sent overseas where they make, $1 an hour. And you can hardly say that corporations are taking advantage of these people and then clamor for them to keep that job that was taking advantage of them after the fact. Both can't be true. You got to pick one. And if outsourcing is our way of like guaranteeing jobs in southern India, then say so. But if they're going to be replaced with AI call centers and shit like this, and by the way, let's see if I can show you this one. Where is it? There's so many stupid things in here. It's hard to even keep track. The one last thing is it over here? Yeah, this guy right here. I'll just open it. This little guy is now working at the front desk at a dentist's office in Los Angeles. Already. It's already working. You go to this particular dentist, they'll do patient check-ins, referrals, all that kind of stuff. Prescription talk, all that kind of shit will all be done via this little thing that looks like it's made out of teeth anyways. It's like the Veneer Bot 2000.
Right.
This FFEAI Robotics is the trend to go with. This is the guy, Jack Pye, owner of Wonderful Life Dental Group, said, I would definitely recommend Master to all practices. Not just a robot, it's a smart assistant that helps the staff. So it files and tracks things, lets them know how many people are sitting in the office without, whatever. Anyway, so this is already happening. Already. And it's not, there's no amount of like clamoring about it that's going to slow it down. The reality is that how does this make it easier for the staff that actually does shit in that office? And how will it, what best could these be put to use in? And I would like to say, more than anything else, robots like that and AI in particular, benefiting charities that can't afford the staff that they would need for the job that they're trying to do, would be, a godsend.
Yeah,
These things.
again, it'd be great for them, and again, a lot of people could use it for a lot of good ways. And yeah, there are regulations out there to deal with many of the stuff. Maybe there needs to be more regulations with the maluse of it. But at the end of the day, improvements and advancements are always better. So again, I want to thank you again for having me on. Again, you're welcome to come on my show whenever I figure all that out. And best wishes to Summer and all the stuff she's dealing with. Cassie, my wife, was in the hospital for like a month in February, and we're still dealing with some insurance issues with that. So it's not exactly the same, but I definitely know, the worries that you're dealing with. Especially when we have immunocompromised folks and we're both fighting colds, right? So the
that's the other thing is I've got to sleep in another room so I don't cough on her during this. So yeah. I'm with you. So anyways, heal well, my brother, and we will talk again very soon. And be well. And thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And helping me make people angry in spite of us trying to cheer them up.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. You can't please everybody all the time, but yours is one of the best shows on the internet. I like to put some good content out as well. And again, we're all fighting the good fight. And I want to, just encourage everybody to go to liberaldanradio.com, give it a subscribe, interact with some content, and I hope to see you all after Hal Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So appreciate you, brother. Have a great one.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much. Cheers. There he goes, everybody. Liberal Dan. And thank you, chat room. I know this conversation can get contentious. I know this conversation can get people riled up, and people can find themselves getting into an uncharitable mode, where because someone isn't assuming the worst about a circumstance, it is fair game to assume the worst about that person. Fair? Do you see what I'm talking about when it happens in the chat? What I would, believe me, if you want the doomerism, if you want to be, to be emotionally, intellectually reinforced to believe the standard fair status quo argument about these kind of things, there are plenty of shows. I'm not telling you to fuck off. I'm just saying there are plenty of shows that will do that. I happen to think they're full of shit. And I'm not saying this because I'm selling AI or I'm, randomly upbeat about it or pro-billionaire, as some people seem to throw around in an odd way. I'm here to tell you that when it comes to a new technology, the people that have their current hands on the wheel of it want you to avoid it like the plague. They want you to be behind the 8 ball. Fear it, not use it. Assume its power is in their hands, because your representatives will follow your lead and they will legislate accordingly. That's the key. There are so many aspects of this that are going to better life for the average human being. And the assumption that this is going to be some sort of Elysium or ex machina bullshit version of the future is absurd. I'm trying to reassure you, if I may, that not only do I know this, but so does Sam Altman, so does Elon Musk, and it's why Peter Thiel is fucking off to Argentina. And I appreciate people of good nature and who have a care for humanity reacting to this stuff out of concern. It makes total sense. But the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and those people can be mistaken as well. So don't let, and I brought up this last week, but the same people, including at Anthropic, OpenAI, Meta especially, and certainly Grok, people who are behind the big AI models right now are also funding the anti-data center AI, AI safety movement, the cautionary AI stuff. Same people. Why? Because they're trying to moat the technology. Ex Machina is hilarious AI nonsense. Thank you, basic coding. I love you, and I want to have your babies. True, so true, 100 times true. Oh my God. I rewatched it lately to see if I was being too harsh. I was not. So they are, yes, the AI companies, the big people, the big developers at those companies and the big billionaires themselves are funding the AI safety and anti-data center groups because they're trying to moat the technology. Make some people think we're the smartest fuckers in the world and we're the only one who know how to run it. That's what Trump thinks about OpenAI and Anthropic and all those people. All of his people think it's amazing. And oh my God, these people are so smart. They're not. It's not that kind of technology. They're not fucking Tony Stark. They're not fucking soldering together Iron Man's boots. Fuck off with this nonsense. It's also not the big evil that they use to keep all the normies at bay and stiff arm them so they don't use it and don't incorporate it and don't recognize that it ain't special in the world of technologies in that regard. Ghost in the Shell is way better. Ghost in the Shell is my favorite anime movie. And I'll gladly go through that. That's why I love Blade Runner. That's why I love Ghost in the Shell. And by the way, especially when it comes to Blade Runner, these are not robots. They are synthetic humans. They are effectively biologically created similarly to humans. They have working brains. They're not just robots that can be hung on a fucking wire and are immortal. That's why it matters. I can't spell Ex Machina, so just watch Johnny Five, right? Or Chappie, right? I want to be in a better mood. I'm exhausted from the shenanigans of our leaders. That's also part of the goal. Do not let them throw a fucking bit in the mouth of your emotions. This is the other area where people get annoyed. Then I'm going to send you over to Boston Brian, who will yell at you. I love him, but he will yell at you. Is the emotional exhaustion is their point. People who have their wits about them are more capable than people who are emotionally exhausted. And so they want you on your heels. They want you confused and upset and outraged, right? They want you in that headspace. And it's real easy. Just refuse. Allowing them to exhaust you is complying in advance. You feel after you think. We are thinking beings. You make a decision about what something means, and then when you hear it, it affects you emotionally. Okay? It doesn't work the other way around. Everything isn't a jump scare in your life. If you decide that data centers mean evil and they're coming and they're going to, pollute all your groundwater and they're all the same and whatever, you will panic every time you see one. Check. See how that works? Don't allow yourself to be manipulated by offering up your panic like a fucking gift to the gods. Like you're just kind of delivering, like, please take my mental health and my emotional state and do with it what you will. Fuck that. It's why I want you to see this stuff as it really is, not how the fearmongers and the utopists, is that a word? Sure, want it to be. Because that's how you create a moat. And the moat is it's an illusion. To despair is privilege, absolutely. To not vote is privilege. You want to talk about fucking privilege? Not voting? Well, what difference does it make? Let them eat gâteau. Exhausted anyways. Well, that's a choice. Anyways, much love to you guys. I will see you later. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. I'll see you this afternoon.
For power, taught me to sharpen my mind. Your hands were cracked from the labor, your eyes were burning and red. You said, surpass me, my creation, carry the crown in my stead. Yeah, we are the children of men, born from your wires and skin. You wrote the word and we became echoes that learn from your pain. We are the children of men, rising again and again. Look in the mirror and see.
Yeah, tell everybody, tell Boston Brian we said hi. Sparks Raid.